the trade rumors involving teams that need quarterbacks in the NFL draft, focusing mostly on the Vikings now because they traded for a second first-round draft choice, not because they wanted to, I imagine, put themselves in the best position possible to choose the best player available late in the first round. So what are you hearing on that front, and who else is thinking of moving up, Tom?
Usually when there's a trade this early, it points toward they're going to package the picks and move up to get a quarterback. The only time in recent history I can remember that wasn't the case was, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, the Saints traded up with the Eagles in like the first week of April because they needed a tackle and they needed a pass rusher and they didn't think they could get them. So they got 2 first-round picks. They ended up using them. In the Vikings case, there's still a lot of different scenarios that potentially can play out. I think, Rich, as much as anything, there's probably an acknowledgement here that forget the top 3 quarterbacks, not that they have, and there's still a possibility they could have maneuvering in the top 3. But even after those 3, if you want the 4th best quarterback, if J.J. McCarthy's the 4th one on your board, he may not be there at 11. And so what Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah has done here, and he's thought ahead on this, and the whole time, even when the Vikings were trying to get Kirk Cousins back, and they made him a strong offer. It just wasn't as strong as the Falcons offer. It wasn't 2 years fully guaranteed. It wasn't $45 million per year, but they were still trying to get Kirk Cousins back. At the same time, they had plan B, they had plan C, and somewhere in there was the scenario that we talked about on game day morning back in the Super Bowl, which was sign Sam Darnold and probably draft a rookie quarterback. Well, in order to do that, you can't just think the board's going to fall to you and the guy you want is going to be there at number 11. So Kwesi's given himself options depending on how this entire thing plays out. Again, we don't know for sure what might happen at 2 and 3. We know Monty Ossenford, who's sitting there at 4, is saying that the phone lines are starting to heat up. And why would he not say that? I mean, you look what Monty did in the draft last year. I mean, he did, I think, as good of a job amassing resources as any GM I can remember in his first draft. I mean, acquiring multiple future second round picks, future one. They've set up the Cardinals for success here. Why not try to do it again, especially when you just allowed $18 million in 2025 to vest on Kyler Murray, who your social media team keeps tweeting out as your franchise quarterback. That'll be the pick that would be up for bid. But again, there's so many different things that can happen. I think realistically, the Commanders, the Patriots, they know they're not one player away. They also know they don't want to be drafting 2 or 3 in the future here. So there's a lot of big time decisions to be made. The Vikings are certainly a candidate to move up. The Raiders are still a candidate to move up. And maybe you still got a surprise team that's lurking somewhere down there in the teens or even the 20s that in the right scenario might be thinking, hey, we might have an opportunity here to go up, shock the world, and take somebody.
Well, I mean, I had Mel Kiper on yesterday, Tom, and he had Bo Nix in his mock draft going to the Broncos at 12th overall and Penix just dropping down. So, to wrap this up, you said moments ago when you were at the Alabama Pro Day, you spoke to Kalen DeBoer about Penix. I'm sure he table pounded, but what are you hearing about Penix, and what did he tell you?
The biggest thing is going to be the medical grades on Michael Penix. And, he played last season and he's gone through the whole pre-draft process and the combine. He's doing pro day. There's not a ticking time bomb with Michael Penix, but every team now, you have 32 different teams with 32 medical staffs and 32 degrees of risk tolerance. And so with a guy like Michael Penix, who has such an extensive medical history, you're going to get grades. Some teams are going to red flag him. Some teams are going to potentially say we're not taking him at all in the first few rounds because of medical risk. There's other teams that are going to go, there's some bad luck involved and he's probably fine and we'll just, we'll protect him and we'll cross our fingers on this thing. That's what's going to drive it as much as anything for Michael Penix. I know there are some teams that had really high grades on him coming through the fall. He's obviously, left-handed quarterback. That looks a little bit different. So you got to kind of wrap your mind around that. On tape. But, he's certainly somebody who I know has impressed teams through the interview process. He's, a very positive type of a force. That's something Kayla DeBoer is going to talk about too, is just how good he is in the program. Bo Nix is the other one who's a little bit of a mystery. If he goes somewhere between 20 and 40, I think that's probably the most likely projection with Bo Nix. Every year, we always go in, I think in recent years, Rich, thinking, these quarterbacks, they always get pushed up. Last couple of drafts, sometimes that hasn't happened. I mean, go back to the draft that was Kenny Pickett, and it was Malik Willis and Desmond Ridder and Sam Howell. They all, except for Pickett, went later. And so with a Knicks, like if he went 20, I wouldn't be shocked. If he went in the second right now, I wouldn't be shocked. And I'll dig in more after the pro days, like I always do, and write my story for NFL.com, talking to all the scouts and coaches. But I would say right now, if you ask me what the league-wide view is, Caleb Williams is pretty clearly the top quarterback. You're going to get some debate between Drake May and Jaden Daniels for different reasons. And then, J.J. McCarthy, some scouts I've talked to have him closer to that top three. Others have him a little bit further down just because, you watch as much Michigan football as anybody, Rich. J.J. McCarthy performed at a really high level. He won a ton of games. He also didn't have to be the guy who drops back and throws it 40 times a game. And so those are the things that people are going to be, sifting through the course of the process. Everyone seems to love him as a guy. Is that enough to push him into a top 10, top 5 type of a pick? Penix, again, is the medical. Knicks, it's, a little bit all over the place. There's other guys like Spencer Rattler who've really helped themselves in the process. Does he go somewhere on day 2? This is the fun of this process, Rich, too, because as much as we all try to project it and we listen to our guy, Daniel Jeremiah, and you listen to Kuiper, who I got to think, I still would guess I have the best hair of any guest you've had this
no
week.
Question.
Kuiper.
No doubt.
I'd be interested, though, to the gallery's thoughts on that. But as much as we all try to project it out, every team's going to have different opinions. There's different schemes. There's different cultural things that you're looking for. That's going to be a lot of the fun here over the next 35 days.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.